Hey, deserving listeners, in this video, I'm going to react to your comments in which you were reacting to my videos in which I was reacting to Love is Blind Season 7. The first set of comments I want to react to is the comments that people had in reaction to my reaction to Marissa and Ramses talking about birth control. I read the comments and realized that, because there were a lot of comments and a lot of people agreeing that I was being sexist. And I don't know if that word was specifically being used, but that's the way I would put it. Some people were telling me in a nice way, but a firm way, and other people were being more firm, I guess is a way to put it. And I, apparently in that video, was saying that Marissa needs to justify her boundary to not use birth control, to not use the pill, and to ask or require or suggest that Ramses needs to wear a condom instead. And apparently I was saying that she doesn't have the right to draw that boundary, or that she's being bossy. And I want to deeply apologize if that's what I was saying, if that's what I was implying or something. I'll tell you, that's not my position. That's not what I was thinking in the moment, but sometimes I misspeak. Sometimes I edit the video and I take something out that would clarify more, or I should have edited it, or I don't know. But it is an awful idea to put out there. And for me, with my platform, to give that impression or to state that is not okay. And I'm guessing for some of you who might like my videos and have been watching for a while, it might have been distressing to hear me say such a thing. So let me be clear, and you're just going to have to trust me that this is my position. This isn't the first time that I've thought about this, and I've thought about it both clinically and personally for, decades. But so you're just gonna have to trust me that whatever I was saying or whatever impression I was giving is not my position. So let me be clear on my position. Of course, Marissa does not need to justify her boundary to not take the pill. She is entitled to say yay or nay or maybe or whatever she wants to about that. I thought I said something like that, but apparently I didn't, or I didn't emphasize it enough. And what I was getting at was that in their communication, regardless of what they're talking about, it might help them to have a better relationship, or a more stable one, or a more loving one, or a more trustworthy one, if, as she draws that boundary, which she's absolutely entitled to, that she explain, not justify, that's different, that she explain where she's coming from, instead of the style that we saw, at least in the edit, in which she just drew the boundary and didn't really want to talk about it further. Now, you could argue that that still is sexist, because he should respect her and not require her to explain. But in a complicated situation like that, in a complicated relationship like a marriage, I think it can help, right? You could say, look, she could say, I am drawing this boundary and it's never going to happen, and here's why. And I'm sorry that this impacts you, but that's the way that it has to be because of the following reasons that I have. Or she could literally have said, I don't have any reasons. I just don't want to do it. And I just am not comfortable with it. And I'm sorry that impacts you, but them's the breaks, But there wasn't anything in that. I've subsequently heard that she and him talked about it further, which I would assume. Now, I also don't know how he received that whole conversation. We saw their nonverbals or the way they were talking in that conversation, but he might have been totally fine with the conversation, the way it went down. And I'm just using it as a jumping off point in terms of style of communication and of what people's rights are as it relates to context and power and privilege. So, but apparently I did not say it right, or I didn't. So the other thing that people were saying was that I was calling her bossy. And I guess I did, but that wasn't my intention. I would never call someone, or I don't know. I might have said something like, maybe this is that bossiness coming up. What I was referring to in terms of the word bossy, which I wouldn't use to describe Marissa or most people on these shows because of the extreme connotation of it. I thought, at least in my head, I was only referencing that word because the mom, Marissa's mom, and Marissa herself called Marissa bossy. So at least I would hope that I was only drawing a connection of like, well, I wonder if this is that quality that they're referring to, not what I refer to, but that rigidity that is not just around this issue, but about others. Because at the time, I was concerned about their communication and about their relationship, and was hoping for the best. You know, who knows what's going to happen? But you know, that's the angle that I had with that. So I could talk for a long time about it. In fact, I already recorded a whole thing, and I yammered too much, and I just erased it and started over. And so this is me doing take 2, which is less yammery. But like I said, I apologize. And if I hurt anyone, or I participated in the patriarchy, or I triggered some past experience that you've had related to this or adjacent to it, that's awful. It's awful. It's awful. And I should have been more careful. All right, let's read some comments. So this comment is from Love is Blind Season 7, number 19. This is a continuation of the scene in which Hannah and Nick are with the ducks, you know? So Cheryl says, I think Nick was simply feeling Hannah's attempts to control and shame him, and he was resisting. I think Nick was simply feeling Hannah's attempt to control and shame him, and he was resisting. Yeah, I remember thinking that too, because of the way that they were interacting, or that whole scene. It looked odd to me, and that was an hypothesis that I had, that Nick was at first saying, hey, let's go do something. Let's go ride those ducks over there. And then when she was like, no, and don't do that, that would give me the ick. I think he was trying to say, hey, let's loosen up a little bit. Let's not be so uptight. And also, like, I don't feel great about being hemmed in already. And so I'm going to do it, and you'll see that everything will be fine. It kind of had that look to it. And then when she wasn't fine, I think he was a little flustered by that. Going on, Cheryl, the same Cheryl, says, I don't think Hannah was so jealous about the duck and lady scene as she was pissed that she couldn't control Nick in the moment. The way she called out to him when the lady joined him on the duck felt like she was trying to exert dominance. End of comment. Yeah, I didn't think that so much at the time. I mean, that was on the list, but the more we watch, yikes, right? Number 20, the video that I titled A Lot of Poking. Ruth says, watching Tim and Alex is wild. It's like two people trying to be the boss of each other. They seem to enjoy testing each other's limits. End of comment. Yeah, that was apparent to me as well. And I commented on that they seem to be in a frequent power struggle with each other about extremely mundane things. Ligley says, I can see how Alex's words communicate boundary testing or even trying to establish control, but I don't understand why the same can't be said of Tim, who keeps using the same term that clearly makes Alex uncomfortable. She stated that she doesn't like him doing the dog woof woof stuff. End of comment. Yeah, agreed. Maybe I didn't emphasize that enough. The entirety by that point, when they're at the getaway, like midway through the getaway is when this video was me reacting. I noticed the power struggle, and then I ran through the different moments that I could recall. And although both of them are participating in it, a lot of the sort of boundary setting by Tim by that point was more like closer to his jurisdiction, whereas her boundary setting was more bulldozing him, you know? And I think I was emphasizing that because of that reason. But yeah, when he was doing that whole dog woof woof thing, and I think it was a similar motivation, or at least I would speculate that it might be for Tim, that he was just being himself in the hallway, because that's when he started the woof woof thing. And she pushed back on it. I think similarly, and maybe similarly problematically as Nick with the duck thing, it might be that Tim was trying to show in a halfway passive aggressive and halfway like hopefully helpful way that he was trying to show her that, look, it's fine. We can joke around, everything, you know, loosen up a little bit. But I don't know. Meredith says, I wonder about Alex and symptoms of depression of dysthymia. As someone who struggles with high functioning depression myself, it kind of looks like that. Yeah, it could be. Ambling says, someone mentioned this elsewhere, but Tim seems to do things out of spite. End of comment. Yeah, I guess if we look at that early behavior, his seemed more out of spite and hers seemed more out of, you know, well, I guess maybe both. Yeah, anyway. Going on. Number 21. Well, anyway, the rest of this video will just be for members of the channel. So if you want to watch me react to your comments, become a member. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.